That's me doing my impersonation of a zombie from an Italian horror movie. Welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming your way to review the Lucio Fulci film from I think 1981 by the name of The Beyond. So this movie crossed my radar because a longtime viewer and contributor, shows up in live stream chats and leaves comments of the channel, Austin Wilcutt, recommended this film, an early, well, I don't know about early, a Lucio Fulci movie. I don't know when he passed on, so maybe it's not an early Lucio Fulci movie, maybe it's a later Lucio Fulci movie, but at any rate, it's a Lucio Fulci movie that I've never seen, and admittedly I've seen my very first Lucio Fulci movie I probably saw back in 1994 when I blind bought at Suncoast. I was working there at the time. Zombie on the VHS I got at the time. It said Zombie. God, I can't remember if it said Zombie 2 or 3 on the cover, but it was in fact the Lucio Fulci film Zombie. That was my first time I ever seen a Lucio Fulci film, and that's probably still my favorite movie of his, just because, yeah, I mean, it's got nostalgia and stuff connected to it. But so I've seen a handful of Lucio Fulci films, and of course, they're notoriously gory and all this and that, and in the case of Zombie can feature, gratuitous nudity, which is always fun. So this movie, I've been familiar with like the cover art. I don't know at this point exactly. You've probably already seen it, possibly, but at this point, before I'm editing the review, I don't exactly know what like the original theatrical poster, what some of the early poster imagery was for this movie. I know what the more recent Grindhouse releasing covers and stuff look like, but unlike the famous poster for Zombie, I don't know what the original posterage would have been for this film. But I've seen the title, I've seen the imagery of the more, I guess, recent poster art, and I've kind of had my time with Italian horror. I got into Italian horror when I was teenager in the mid-90s and stuff, so I kind of had my Italian horror phase, if you will, but I'm not opposed to seeing more Italian horror that I haven't seen. I was able to see this for free on TubiTV.com, so I'm like, well, we'll go take a look at it. And honestly, it's very similar to another Lucio Fulci film by the name of House by the Cemetery, and it almost makes me wonder if is it the same house from House by the Cemetery? Probably not, but it kind of reminded me of that. Basically, the premise of this movie is the opening scene takes place in 1928, I want to say, or thereabouts, and it's kind of interesting how they filmed the 1928 footage in kind of a black and white / sepia tone thing, which is kind of interesting. We see this basically a house which, for all intents and purposes in the movie, is masquerades as a hotel, and in room 36 there's this creepy kind of guy painting this creepy end of days, who the hell knows what the hell it is, kind of end of days painting rather. Something else is going on with some woman reading from a book or whatever. I don't know. There's a book they constantly show in this movie with the word on it. I can't remember what the word is or what it translates to or whatever. But yeah, and this is all taking place in room 36. And some of you might wonder, well, why is it 36? And it's very possible that they chose 36 for the room number for this film, because you may or may not know that 36 is the 666th triangular number. So if you add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way up to 36, if you add those numbers together, it will equal 6, 6, 6. So it's very possible that's why they chose the room number 36 in this film. But at the beginning of this movie, this creepy guy is painting this end of days post. Why do I call it a poster? Painting. Well, I guess a poster painting. You can put both of them. You can put on the wall. And there's this chick. I don't know if she's reading from a book or whatever. But it's kind of like Frankenstein. These villagers are approaching the house / hotel, and with torches. I want to say they got torches, the whole deal. I can't remember if there's any underneath the house catacombs footage in the beginning of the movie. There might be. But anyway, they end up going into the room and basically just nailing this guy to the wall. I can't remember if they nail him. No, I don't think they nail him to the wall in room 36. Do they take him beneath the house slash hotel and nail him to the wall in the catacombs possibly? But some early gore in the film, black and white gore, sepia gore. And what's interesting is it looks like they might not use the same liquid they use for blood in the color, normal color scenes in these films. It looks like it's almost water or something that might not even really have any color to it. They probably should have used what Hitchcock used in Psycho for the sepia scene. But the blood in the sepia slash black and white scene at the beginning of the movie looks more like water, which is interesting. But they this guy, I don't know if this guy is supposed to be in league with the devil or what, but he's painting this end of days painting, so they must think he's a bad guy, so they crucify him, you nail him to the wall, and then they like throw some bubbling I just remembered right now, some boiling, I don't know what the hell it is, boiling something onto his, he's stuck to the wall, crucified, and they throw this boiling whatever the hell it is, plaster on his face, and it just kind of like melts and it just cuts to a fake head, and it's just kind of I think was it the opening credit? I don't know if it's no, it's not the opening credits, but just right before the opening credits, you just see in classic Italian horror movie fashion, they zoom in and you just see this, this melting fake head or whatever, and the classic Italian horror movie music. I imagine it's the same guy who did the classic music from, Zombie as well. And that's, to me, I really probably should have Zombie on Blu-ray. I still don't, and should track down the original music for Zombie. That is some classic-ass Italian horror movie music, wah, 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 wah. Wah, 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 wah. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you with the rest of it. Feel free to search on YouTube Zombie soundtrack or whatever, and that's some classic Italian horror movie music. But I just love how these movies, and that's one thing I want to say. It seems like these movies, obviously, they're kind of light on quote-unquote story. And when I watched this one for the first time recently, it occurred to me, I think it seems like these movies, they just think about all kinds of gory ways to kill people, and then they just write the movie around these gory deaths. That's what it seems like, and I have absolutely, if that's what they do, I have absolutely no problem with that, work ethic. But when I watched this movie, that's what it seemed like. It's like, okay, I come up with the idea for this death. Or the mother gets burned and killed with the acid on the face. That happens at this point of the movie. And then at this point of the movie, this happens where the eyeball gets, squished out of the eye socket. And, then we just, at the end of the movie, this is what happens. And then someone just has to come up with, just connecting the dots to get from kill to kill to kill. But that's what happens in 1928, I think, if that's the year. I think that's the year. Cut to 1981. And what I love about this movie is when it's 1981, it says 1981. It doesn't say present day. That's one of my pet peeves for movies. And even, admittedly, one of my favorite films of all time, the original Friday the 13th from 1980, that does my pet peeve of present day, when it cuts to after the opening credits. And it's just like, I really... You can't do that, because now when you're watching Friday the 13th 45 years later, it's sure as hell not present day. So when a movie can say, the year or such and such odd years later, I definitely appreciate that more than present day. So, cut to present day, 1981, this woman. And this woman, I've seen her in another Italian horror movie, possibly it was a Lucio Fulci film, from around the same time. There's a couple of them that I've reviewed on this channel. The one where the priest hangs himself. It's got Christopher George in it. It might be that one she's from, but if it's not, it's another Italian horror movie. This relatively attractive chick is the main star, and she's inherited this house/hotel from, I think, her grandfather or something, and has come to take it over. Oh, incidentally, this is filmed in whatever, it's like New Orleans. I can't remember. Is it Louisiana? I can't remember the state that New Orleans is in. But anyway, it has a New Orleans. It might be. Is it Louisiana? I don't freaking know. I'm a freaking guy up north. From Minnesota. What the hell do I know about the South? But it's like whatever state New Orleans is in. This is like filmed in that state, and it's funny because the people. I watched the English dub version, and some of the people that dub the actors you're doing like the Southern accent, which is something that isn't too common. I don't think I've ever seen on an Italian horror movie yet. Like the guy who dubbed the voices, yeah, in the Southern accent, which is kind of funny. But this woman inherits the house/hotel and all of the, whatever deviltry that comes with it unbeknownst to her. And quite honestly, I can't even remember much about what the hell happens for the rest of the movie. It's just like so many of these movies, they all basically follow the same premise where you've got a mystery the main characters find themselves in, and then some hunky guy shows up, or in the case of Zombie, maybe not so hunky guy, but a guy shows up because, a woman can't solve. This is the good old days when a woman can't do anything or solve any problems on her own, and a man is needed to to show up and figure everything out, and she's around to just be pretty. But that's one of my complaints about this movie, unlike with Zombie and possibly other Lucio Fulci films. There's no gratuitous nudity, or at least that I remembered in this movie, so that's a little bit of a bummer, but I can always watch Zombie for that, I guess, or any other number of videos that can be found on the worldwide internet. But yeah, honestly, that's more or less my review of the movie. She of course ends up finding out that some of the sordid history of this hotel, and I want to say this house/hotel may have been built on one of the 7 doors to hell, or if I don't get all the frickin' details right, forgive me. I mean, I've seen this movie once, and I remember it's something like that. It's built on one of the 7 gateways to hell, or some shit like that, and maybe that's why Mr. Deviltry artist guy was in room 36. And the other interesting thing about the number 36 is it's kind of interesting how you've got the number 3 and then 6 kind of indicating 3 6s. So it's kind of it's numbers are really kind of interesting if you really get into them, and you begin to realize that a lot of stuff there's a lot more behind the scenes of numbers and stuff that we've been taught in public or even private school. But that's another video, possibly another YouTube channel altogether. But that's the premise of this movie. We don't know what the hell is going on, and bring in quote unquote, I mean he's not that hunky, the guy in this movie, but bring in quote unquote alpha male to to help solve the problems and this and that. This movie is chock full of, maybe it doesn't have all that hell of a much amount of gore and stuff, but it's chock full of Lucio Fulci deaths. You've got one where you've got some I don't think it's a librarian. Since it's a bookstore, it reminded me of Vertigo, that scene in Vertigo. But some guy at a bookstore falls off the book ladder and lands on the ground, and these tarantulas come out of nowhere and just basically chew his face to pieces. And it's funny because it's a mix of clearly like fake robotic tarantulas, in the background, and then real tarantulas, and an ingenious combination of real head, fake tarantula, fake head, real tarantula. Me and Beth watched this, and she doesn't like spiders, and she's like, I think kind of put off by the scene, and I was just like, much to her, annoying chagrin or whatever. I'm very vocal when I watch movies, and I kind of think out loud, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting combination of fake head, real spider, fake, spider, real head, that they just keep cutting back and forth to, there'll be a close-up of a real eye and a fake spider, and then, the real spider is in the fake mouth, and all this and that. But there's several classic set pieces of, Lucio Fulci gore, and the reason I said when I watched this movie, it seems like this movie is like built around the deaths, is because it just seems like, I have no problem with it. It's absolutely awesome. Movie just stops to just for 5-10 minutes just to show this gory, every detail of this gory death and after death and all this stuff, and it's what we love about these movies. I'm not saying it's bad, but it just felt more so than I think maybe any other Lucio Fulci movie I've seen. This movie just screamed like, yeah, I think they came up with the gore, and then the movie was built around the gore. Everything else is just filler for the non-gore scenes. And as I said, some poor, little whatever tween or teen girl gets to watch her mom's face be dissolved by a bottle of, I don't know if it's supposed to be embalming fluid or some kind of acid or some stuff in a morgue. And God, Italian horror movies really go there, I gotta tell you. But so there is if you're a gore hound, there's definitely a decent amount of gore to be had in the classic Lucio Fulci, just let's kill people as grossly as we possibly can. I don't want to spoil the ending, but I will say me and Beth were, I guess I should, I think you're supposed to say Beth and I. Beth and I were, me and Beth were very, we were kind of surprised about the ending, like, in relation to, we'll just say the painting, the painting that was being painted at the beginning of this movie, and how the movie ends in a kind of ambiguous way. And actually, honestly, like, the movie is so, like, maybe not the most creative thing as it wears on. I mean, creative, I guess the most creative aspect is the kills and, thinking them up and, and carrying them out. But like the end of the movie, what they did with like the painting and the ambiguous ending, I was like, oh wow, that came out of left field. That's actually really cool. So I actually do like how the movie ends, and I'm not going to spoil it. I would encourage you to hopefully head on over to TubiTV.com and see if it's still there. That's one thing, as I say, it's, a bummer about streaming services is one day it's there, one day it's not, and so on and so forth. But if you haven't seen it, and you've got 90 minutes or whatever to waste or whatever, I'd recommend, going to check it out. And it's, I gotta say, these streaming services like TubiTV.com, I mean, how freaking cool are they, honestly? And me and Keith in the 90s, man, we just and instead of having to go to a video store to rent these movies, imagine being, a teenager now and just being able to just, we never would have left the house. That's the bad thing about it. We just would have been like, oh, and just watching all of these movies. And what's so great about it is you can see the uncut, R-rated or unrated versions of stuff. It's not like a TV cut. So like, these sites like TubiTV.com and stuff are really cool to be able to just watch some of this stuff that you otherwise wouldn't be able to see, because I've long given up paying to see stuff that people recommended, because a lot of times it's just like, why did they recommend this? So yeah, my days of paying for recommendations are over. So my star rating, let's be honest, it's it didn't blow my ass off. It's not a movie I feel like I have to own, but I can probably give it, right down the middle there. 2 stars out of 4 stars for Lucio Fulci film The Beyond. And honestly, the title is maybe a little might be a little boring, honestly. Like maybe something a little more, just eye-catching, like, from beyond the grave, or, beyond, yeah, something more meaty or juicy title, you could come up with something. But like Zombie, I mean, there's a movie title for you. Or, City of the Dead. I can't remember what they called the one with the priest who hangs himself. City of the Dead or something. Words with dead or zombie, or, those words should really be found in Lucio Fulci titles. New York Ripper, that's another one that I haven't seen that I probably should. And it used to be, and it might still be on Tubi TV.com, so maybe one of these days I'll try to watch that or whatever. But yeah, that'll, I guess, more or less do it for my review of The Beyond. Just, if you've seen a handful of Lucio Fulci films like I have, I mean, it's unfortunately nothing that spectacularly different necessarily. God, I want to say it's possible, maybe there's more deaths, I don't know, than some other Lucio Fulci films. Like, you know, I'm pretty sure I've got the Blu-ray of House by the Cemetery, and I want to say that it's possible that maybe this has more deaths than that. I haven't seen that for a while, but I would imagine I reviewed that on this channel as well. But that might be another one worth revisiting. But I guess at this point I'm just rambling. So I guess that pretty much does it for this review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, we'll catch you on the next video.